3.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Speakers and Leaders Hour. I'm Dave Wilkins, your host, and this is indeed the program that comes into your home once a month on the first Tuesday of the month, and it's on live here from the Allen County Public Library from 7 to 8 p.m. We have some great people in the studio tonight, and I'd like to introduce those people at this time. To my immediate left, your right, is Mr. Tom Haller. Tom, thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure, and you just are a rock that keeps the show going and stable. Next to Tom, we have a lady who is a visitor to us tonight. Her name is Sister Bukhari, and she will be giving us a speech a little later on. Thank you so much for being here tonight, Sister. Okay. And then, on the other side of the room, we have a beautiful young lady who has been here on many occasions, and that's the lovely Patricia Knaebe. Patricia, thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy yourself, and I think we'll hear from you a little later on. Okay. And as I said, I'm Dave Wilkins, and I'm the host of the program. And like I say, this has been coming into your home now since, I don't know, the late 1889, 90s, so it's been a few years that we've been doing this. And we're here to promote Toastmasters. Toastmasters is that organization that is, I think, one of the best kept secrets in the world, because actually a lot of people don't know about it, or they don't know about us. So I'm going to just go around the room and ask a couple of the Toastmasters, what do you think is the most important thing that a person gets from a Toastmasters club? Patricia?
Well, Dave, I think that one of the most important things that a person gets from the Toastmasters Club is leadership skills. We have a lot of opportunities for club members to step up into leadership roles, and those roles help us hone our skills.
Oh, that's very true. Okay. And Tom, do you have any thoughts on what is an important part of the Toastmaster Club?
Well, frankly, I thought the way that came down, Patricia would probably say impromptu speaking.
How astute of you.
It's all good. There's no bad part. We learn to speak in public. We learn impromptu speaking. We learn leadership skills. And I think as much as anything else, you learn to think logically. There are Toastmasters who continue to do things that I consider unfortunate, but by and large, overall, I think that Toastmasters are a much sharper group of people. They make fewer mistakes and proceed more logically in life.
I think they get their point across a lot faster, a lot more efficiently, just by having been a part of the group. And of course, my wife is also a Toastmaster, and we've talked about this a lot over the years. And I think the most important thing is in a club is you become a family. You become a group of people who meet regularly. You know one another's lives. You know who's going on, who's having a baby, what's important in their lives, job promotions, those sort of things. And my friend Fred Horn, he said it once at Anthony Wayne, and he was so succinct. He said, nowhere else do I go in the world where I get a round of applause just for standing up and doing something. Nobody at home applauds when I walk in, and nobody cares what I do. But I come here, you give me a round of applause, they actually like what I'm doing. And that makes you feel good. My wife's often said that she would go to a Toastmaster meeting and be tired and all worn out. But by the time the evening was over, she'd be energized and full of energy and ready to do things. And that was because of the people that you were around, really positive people. Sister, can I ask you, did your dad ever share anything about Toastmasters that he thought was really important in the organization?
For me, he taught me a lot about being comfortable and standing in front of people and being a leader and being the one that takes the initiative to go ahead and start whatever it may be. And it helped me to be more organized and to just be a more well-rounded person.
What an awesome endorsement for Toastmasters. Thank you so much. Very good. Okay, well, if you've been out there as an audience member in the past, you know that one of the things that we do is give speeches. Now tonight we are pleased. We are going to have 3 different presentations by 3 different people, and 2 of those will be evaluated. But now let's get on with the program, and I'm going to introduce our first speaker, who tonight is our own Tom Haller.
I don't care, but it's Patricia.
You want Patricia to go first?
Oh, she's listed first as well. I don't care who goes first.
Okay. My mistake. First one I ever made. First mistake. Okay. Here we go. There we go. Our first speaker is indeed a distinguished Toastmaster. You've got to do a lot of stuff to become distinguished. Not only that, she's a past Division B governor. Not once, but twice. Also, she is going to be the conference chair for the fall conference for Toastmasters for all of Indiana, who will be here this autumn. And she's in charge of their comfort, the education, the programs, everything that goes on at a Toastmaster conference. Tonight, she's working from the basic manual, and it's project number 6, which is vocal variety. And she has given us a lot of presentations that were pretty serious and really strong. Tonight, she's going to entertain us. She has a couple puppy dogs, and they are the light of her life. Her presentation is entitled The Yin and Yang of Moose and Fred. Please welcome Patricia.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, most honored guest, and our guests at home. Many of you have heard me talk about my dogs, Moose and Fred. And when Dave invited me to be on the TV show tonight, or actually he said, "You're going to be there tomorrow, right, Patricia?" And I said, "Yes, I will be there tomorrow." And I said, "What would you like me to talk about?" He said, "Let's do something fun." So here we go. Moose and Fred, the yin and yang of Moose and Fred. Many of you know that my husband and I have 2 dogs, Moose, who is now 15 and a half, but he still gets around. He is still relatively active for his age. And Fred, the perpetual teenager, the 8-year-old who refuses to grow up. They are as different as night and day. Moose hangs out in the yard. He is a wonderful dog who has managed to understand the concept of being without a leash. He has been this way since the age of 2. Once we got him trained to stay in the yard, he stays in the yard. Fred, on the other hand, does not understand the concept of walking off a leash. He doesn't know the words stay in the yard. He doesn't even know the word stay. If by some misfortune he gets out our front door, and it has happened on occasion, he is gone like a rocket. He bounds down the street and he terrorizes every neighborhood person, cat, squirrel, bird that he can possibly terrorize. Now, he is poetry in motion when he runs. However, my husband and I both know that when he is off leash, all bets are off of him behaving. The yin and yang of Moose and Fred. The only time Moose will leave the yard is if somebody happens to be walking by who he knows and he wants to say hi. He'll walk down the hill, he'll walk up to the person wagging his tail, and he gently sniffs the person. Sniffs the person's hand. If the person bends down to say hi, he'll sniff the person's ear or eyes. And that's his way of greeting a friend of his. Fred, on the other hand, jumps. If a person walks up to Fred to say hi, the first thing we warn the person of is don't bend down to say hi to him because he will jump up and smack you in the nose. Fred does not know how to sit pretty and have a gentle hand come down. He will want to lick. He will want to jump up and get into a person's face. He is very exuberant about his greetings. The yin and yang of Moose and Fred. You can see the pictures. Moose is on the top. Now, this is a picture of him when he was younger, and this happens to be a picture of him after he had destroyed one of his balls. One of his toy balls was stuffed with stuffing, and he tore it apart to see what was inside, and that was the end of that. Fred, on the other hand, the second picture, this is a picture of him. He somehow got his chew toy caught on his tags on his collar. And he was afraid to move. He would not leave that sitting position until I had removed the chew toy from his tags. Of course, I had to find a camera first and snap his picture before I released him from his chew toy prison. Another way that Fred and Moose differ. Moose is a very independent dog. As loving as he is, as social as he is, he's very independent. Even as a puppy, he would jump up on the bed, say goodnight to me and my husband, jump off the bed, and find another place to sleep in the house. Fred, on the other hand, manages to jump up on the bed, wiggle himself in between me and my husband, take up about 1/2 to 3/4 of the bed, and promptly fall asleep with his head on a pillow. He stays there all night. My husband and I have about this much space on either side of Fred to get a good night's sleep. Moose and Fred are very different. When I think about how neighbors react to Moose and Fred, again, yin and yang, completely different. Our neighbors, when they walk down the street or ride their bikes or take a jog down the street, holler out, "Hi, Moose," if they see him in the yard. And he sits and he wags his tail and he looks around, very happy to have the acknowledgement. On the other hand, when neighbors see Fred out, they go the other direction. Oh my goodness, it's Fred. We need to stay away from that dog. He's going to jump up. He's going to try to lick us. He's going to bop us in the nose. He's going to do something. Different dogs, different personalities. And it has nothing to do with their age. This is always the way Moose has been. This is always the way Fred has been. One was born an angel. The other was born a little bit of a terror. We love them both equally. We don't know what we would do without them. But there is definitely a difference between our two dogs, the yin and the yang of Moose and Fred. Master Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Patricia. As I was listening to that speech, I was wondering, and maybe you even know the answer, how did those dogs get those particular names? Because it sounds like the names actually really went with the dog.
The names do fit them, yes. Moose got his name because as a puppy, we were trying to think of a name for Moose, and I came up with a few names, and my husband didn't like the names. Moose was a birthday present for me, and so my husband said, "He's your birthday present, you name him." And I came up with a few names. My husband vetoed the names, and at that particular time, Moose put his paw in my hand, and I said, "That is a big moose puppy paw." And my husband said, "Moose. I can live with Moose." I said, "Moose?" So Moose is his name. And Bill took one look at Fred when we brought him in the house, and he said, "You look like a Fred." And that's been his name ever since.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that information. And as I remember last winter, you were talking to us about you got a temporary kitty.
A temporary kitty that turned into a permanent cat.
There is no such thing as a temporary
There's no
cat.
such thing as a temporary kitty, no. No, we tried to rehome him unsuccessfully. He decided our home was his home. His name is Rock. And I'll do a speech on him sometime too.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciated that tonight. Very funny. Okay, on to our next presenter, who happens to be Tom Haller. He is, as you have heard, well, if you haven't heard, I'll tell you, he's the president of the Anthony Wayne Toastmasters. He's president of our parliamentary unit. He's a double DTM. He's a past area governor for a couple years, 2-year term. And tonight he's chosen to work out of the basic manual, The Competent Communicator. And then he's doing project number 2, which is to organize your speech. That's where you have a speech that has an opening, a body, and a close. And of course you can use any topic you want to fulfill those requirements. And tonight Tom has chosen the topic of, get this, Washington. Please help me welcome Tom Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins. Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and everyone in TV land. If you didn't catch on, being near the 4th of July, by Washington, I mean President Washington. Now, most of you are well aware of his major accomplishments, being president, our first president, 2 times in a row, first time running unopposed and being unanimously elected. He was also, of course, commander of the colonial troops that defeated Great Britain. That was no small task. We were outnumbered, virtually no financing. England was the strongest nation in the world, and they didn't particularly want to let us go. Some would suggest there may have been divine intervention to make this possible. Some might suggest that France was helpful too. At any rate, he pulled off these major accomplishments. I intend to work on mention a few things which are probably less well known. As a child, he had a rather unusual childhood in some ways. He was quite rich in some ways. He, excuse me, was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. I consider the logic of this to be a little thin, but by some basis of reckoning, he was our richest president ever. In today's money, coming in at about $500 million. How they did that, though, was, in my opinion, a little shaky. They figured out the value currently of all the land that he owned back then. So, in other words, if it's an expensive residential district, if it's now in a downtown city or something, why, it would have enormous value. I don't know if that's entirely logical, but somebody had figured it out that way. He was one of the landed gentry. He had some 800 slaves. He had huge holdings. However, he was also very cash poor. Most all their money was tied up in the things that I mentioned, including land. So land rich, cash poor. Also, his father died when he was quite young, and his mother was, excuse me, a little hard to get along with by many accounts. There seems to be some difference of opinion, but in general it's felt that she was really a piece of work. That perhaps one reason that that Washington was able to be so calm under combat conditions and when people were all upset was because he was used to having his mother scream at him constantly and belittle him. Now, he has a quotation which is attributed to him, and I am a little bit uncertain that all these things that have been attributed to him are actually from him because people tend to add on. He quotes here, "My mother was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute all of my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education I received from her." And perhaps he did say that, but he also had a lot of trouble with her. When he was president, there came a time when she developed a public campaign to harass him and humiliate him into giving her an increased allowance, even though she was living pretty high on the hog. He had to take time out from his service and go and settle her down. Just exactly where it was at, it's a little hard to say from this perspective. However, we do know that he did not attend her funeral. So perhaps it wasn't all that smooth sailing. He became a colonel. Well, okay. Excuse me. I apologize. They did not have money to send him to college. He quit school at a rather young age and became a surveyor. that didn't really seem to harm his future prospects very much. And also, being a surveyor, it made it possible for him to find land to purchase, which land was good, which was available. And that was very important. They were not cotton farmers, they were tobacco farmers. Tobacco goes through the land very quickly. You can't continuously raise it year after year, so you need new land. I might also mention that his mother had very little example to follow. For a long series of families, generations back, there had been death in the family. The step-parent would be something out of the grim fairy tales. That probably not a much love lost to start with, because these were not so much marriages of love, they were business deals in which his 1,300 acres married her 1,100 acres, and so forth. So, she didn't really have too much example to follow. Also, in addition to being a surveyor, he very soon provided very successful service as a soldier in the colonial army. Now, the British turned him down to be a regular English soldier, but he led the American troops, and pretty soon, by the age of 23, he was a colonel and in charge of all the American troops. He fought first in the French and Indian War. There he received a reputation not only as an excellent commander, having taken over when the British general died early on, but also as virtually unkillable. He had all kinds of shots through his clothing and so forth, but yet he himself was unharmed. The Indians had a name for him, which basically meant unkillable. However, as I indicated earlier, this was no small thing to lead the colonial troops to victory over Great Britain. However, he lost more battles than he won. Apparently he won the right battles, but he did lose more than he ever won. He had 2 stepchildren. He may have been sterile. He didn't have any children of his own. His wife had 2, and they got married. Both of them died young. The girl died as a teenager. The son was in the Army. He was a junior officer in the Battle of Yorktown. He survived that, but he died very shortly thereafter of, I believe, illness. Speaking of illness, he had just about every illness that is imaginable, many of which would have killed almost anybody. Diphtheria, smallpox, just on and on and on. Some controversy about what he did for teeth. One article said he did not have wooden teeth. In fact, when he went the first time to be president, he only had 1 tooth in his whole head. He may have had ivory teeth later on. He freed all of his slaves when he and his wife both died. He never served in Washington, D.C. That was being built during all this time. He first served in New York, and then the second term he served as president in Philadelphia. He was so poor that he had to borrow $600 to make the trip to New York. Once again, cash poor, lots of money, overall. He debated. He did not take any salary as the commander of the colonial forces. He debated whether or not to do so as president. He decided in the end it would be unfair to future people if it became apparent that only the very rich could serve. So he took a salary of $25,000 a year. When I read that, that struck me as an enormous amount of money, almost mind-boggling for the day and age. And it was 2% of the national budget went to his salary. However, he had to pay the household expenses and so forth out of this, and it was not enough. He dipped into his own income on several occasions to pay for things. So it was expensive. But he was the first to have a cabinet. He was the first to show that we should retire after 2 terms. We kept that up almost exclusively, except for FDR. He was also a modern farmer. You probably don't know this, but he did things which were not common, such as crop rotation, and he introduced, you may not know this, mules into America. The King of Spain sent him a bunch of donkeys. He bred those with his own horses. He had something like, I think, 57 mules when he died. So, I will read you a few of the quotes which are attributed to him. Labor to keep alive in our labored to keep alive in our breast that little spark of celestial fire called conscience. The foolish and wicked practice of profane cursing and swearing is a vice so mean and low that every person of sense and character detests and despises it. Let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be managed without religion. Reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. So, I hope he made all those quotes. They're right there, pretty sound. I have vast numbers of them, but I'm long past my time, so I will surrender the control of the lectern to our host, Dave Wilkins.
Thank you very much, Tom. Interesting, very interesting. He was an amazing man. There was a book out, I believe it was called Killing Washington. Was it written by Bill O'Reilly? And they talked about how many different times he'd been shot at, or he had bullet holes in his uniform. Right. And he was indeed unkillable, so that's good. Okay. Our next speaker is our guest this evening, and I've learned several things that I absolutely did not know. She is currently serving as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now, I know about the young men because they have in fact called upon us on more than one occasion. I did not realize that the same type of program went forth with young ladies. How awesome. Her name is Sister Bukhari, and she is from Pakistan, making her home here, and she's a citizen of the U.S. now. So her speech is entitled, Leaving a Legacy. Please welcome Sister Bukhari.
I'm so thankful for this opportunity. The title of my speech is called Leaving a Legacy. I know Fort Wayne is very famous for its family history, so that's something that I wanted to continue to talk about. So I am from Pakistan. My father was raised in Pakistan. He's the only one of 6 children to be able to go to school past the 3rd grade. And he has left a legacy for me, and I am his legacy. So I know that the things that he has done for my family have changed my legacy, and the things that he will continue to do and the things that I will do will change my legacy as well. So our story, I guess, starts in Pakistan. We moved to the United States when I was 7, and we were here for about 6 to 8 years. And then after my dad got his master's and PhD, we moved back to Pakistan. And there he worked for our church, and he traveled a lot in India, and he traveled in Nepal and Bhutan. And there he was, providing education for the younger generation and providing them an opportunity to go to school and to learn and do the same thing that he had done. And while he was doing that, that kind of caught the eye of religious extremists in our country. And so one time we were having a conference, and this man comes to our conference, and he asks if we can do a report on the things that my dad was working on and the things that he was helping to move along in terms of education for impoverished families. And this guy started coming over to our house a lot, and he started becoming my father and my family, except about a month later he tried to get us to say things that were against the Islamic religion, which is, we have blasphemy laws in Pakistan. They're not enforced by the government, but people still enforce them. And so my father and us, knowing better than to say things that are not kind, we didn't do that. And then a few weeks later, the same guy, he came over and he said that he needed to stay in our house. He said that his wife and him had got into a fight, and we were not okay with that. And so it took us about 2 hours to convince this man to let us take him to a motel and let him stay there and sort of pay for his stay there. And that worked out, was fine. And then later that week he'd called and he said the extremists think that I'm working for you. They want to come meet with you and they'll pick you up in their own time in their own car, and basically in a drop of a hat they would come and take care of business. And my father said no, and we stopped talking to him, and this man would keep sending death threats and keep sending messages that were a little bit scary, but we were able to sort of ignore it and move on. And then finally, a little bit before Christmas time, this man called again and basically said that he is giving all our information over to these extremists and sort of washing his hands clean of the situation. At that moment, we waited for my father to get home, and then we picked up the clothes that we had on our backs and moved to a different city. And things were okay for about 3 months, and then while we were in this different city in Islamabad, my dad was driving home from work, and he saw 3 guys on the side of the road sort of wave him down, and being the kind person that my father is, he thought he would pull over. And so he did so, and he rolls down his windows, and these guys jump in his car and basically hold him in gunpoint and take him. I don't know where they took him, but they took him, and they interrogated him and told him to change his religion. And my dad talked to them for a while, and he let them know that, he'd grown up in this country, he knows what goes on, and he's very aware of the situation. So thankfully they let him go, and my father was able to come home that night. And the next night, around 2:30 in the morning, we hear someone banging on our front door. And in Pakistan, you have the house, and then it's kind of like a compound. You have the home, and then you have a cement, walls, and then you have a metal gate in front. And thankfully you have flat roofs in Pakistan too, so you can go on top of the roof to see what was going on. So my dad did exactly that. And it was those same 3 guys with AK-47s ready to shoot down anyone who'd open the door. So we pretended that we were quiet and that we weren't there. And after that, next few days, we were able to leave the country. And it was really cool because it being 4th of July, and we were able to come back to the United States on the 4th of July. And so that was really a really cool thing for us to experience, because every 4th of July we get to think of the legacy that we have left, and we get to think of the things that we left behind and the freedoms that we have now, for all those men and women who fight in the armed forces, and for all those who serve in our government to help keep people like my family and help keep all of us safe. And so as we go on, I would just like to leave everyone with a little food for thought. What kind of legacy would you all like to leave behind? Do you want one where you have goals and people know what you stand for and know what you will continue to do? Because when you know those things, when you have those goals in mind, you're able to leave a legacy of, whether it's love, a legacy of hard work, a legacy of education, or whatever it may be. I know that the legacies that we leave behind are so important. And thank you for this opportunity to speak, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wow. We really don't realize what we have here, the freedoms that we have, the ability to do a TV program like this and share our own personal thoughts and beliefs. Thank you. And thank God you're safe and sound, and your family too. They're all here now?
Yeah, they all live in Monterey, California.
Monterey, okay.
So it's really nice there.
Well, we are blessed to have you here tonight. Thank you again.
Of course.
Okay, now on to the evaluation portion of the program. Let's see. Patricia, you spoke first.
Are we going to take a break, or we're past the halfway point?
Well, why don't we just do the evaluations and then take a little bit of a break and then see where we're at, okay? Is that okay with you?
Oh, absolutely. It's up to you.
Okay. All right. Well, Tom, do you want to give her evaluation at this time?
I will.
That's for Patricia.
Well, as always, Patricia has done it again. An excellent presentation. The yin and yang of her dogs. I've heard her speak many times of her dogs, and it's always delightful to have her do so. I myself have no particular interest in being a dog owner, but I'm quite willing to live vicariously through our dogs. A lot less cleaning up the yard that way. Yeah, you are indeed always a ray of sunshine. This is not the most helpful evaluation you've ever gotten, because I quite frankly am not sure what you would have done to have made it any better. It was a great job. Like I said, these stories are always very enjoyable. This was no exception. Like, we'll just kind of stand at her feet or sit at her feet and learn from her. Mr. Wilkins.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. What I liked was your gestures and your continuation of using the title of your speech as the speech went along. And it just seemed to flow out of you like this was a love story for your puppies. And I appreciate that.
We love our puppies.
All right. Well, then you were to evaluate Tom's presentation. Do you have that? And
I
do you want to
do.
come up here and do it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
This will be her evaluation of Tom's presentation.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, most honored guests, guests at home, and especially Tom. It is always a pleasure to evaluate Tom. I learned so much from Tom's speeches because you bring history to life. You always find the little-known facts and nuggets of the personalities that you bring into our lives through your speeches. I like the way you research your topics. You research your topics thoroughly. I also liked the introduction where you reviewed Washington's great accomplishments for us and then used that as a very nice transition into the little-known details of his life. I liked everything about the speech, Tom. I really don't have anything to say that you could have done to make the speech more effective. I would like to say Toastmasters helps us with when we have difficulty speaking, and I've done it on this TV show where I got up, got a tickle in my throat, and had to cough, had to actually leave the lectern and then resume my speech later. And you got a tickle in your throat tonight too, and you powered through it, and you did a phenomenal job of powering through that. And I think Toastmasters helps us with those little difficult moments that we don't normally know how to handle, but you handled it beautifully. I loved your speech. Thank you so much, Master Toastmaster.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Patricia. That's the fun part of a live TV show. There's so little live television anymore, but where there is live television, it's fun to watch. Some of the newscasts are live, and of course, sporting events such as football games or Super Bowls, they are all live events, and what's happening is what's happening right on the spot. When I was growing up, all television was live, and if you watch your show of shows or you watch Sid Caesar, you never knew what was going to happen, and if it had a blow-up of some sort, they had to, as you say, Patricia, power through it and get on and keep going. But that's what this is all about, and that's what Toastmasters is all about, and that's what we can help you do. You saw 3 different speeches tonight, great examples of public speaking and sharing information and doing it with style and elan. And now we're going to take a short break. We have a little bit of a PSA here in the middle, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Robert's Rules of Order. Okay?
Thank you very much. And now for our next speaker, Stanley Lichner.
Speaking in public doesn't have to be a death sentence. At Toastmasters, we can help you overcome your fears.
I'd like to begin tonight with a little joke. This guy, he's a farmer, and he says, "Hey, hello, sorry." But seriously, folks,
Speaking in public is no joke.
doctor says, chicken says,
For help, call Toastmasters, the public speaking support group.
the chicken.
All the education in the world won't help you get ahead in life if you can't express your ideas effectively. Every day, competition for advancement gets tougher and tougher. You need an edge. A Toastmasters Club can give you that edge. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters gives you the confidence to express your ideas to anyone. Get the Toastmasters edge.
What future do you envision for yourself? What dreams do you have? If you want your dreams to come true, you must have confidence in yourself and your abilities. A Toastmasters Club can help you build that confidence. A low-cost learning experience for men and women. Toastmasters shows you how to express yourself clearly and effectively. Make your dreams a reality. Join a Toastmasters Club.
Before we begin the second half, I'd like to have Tom come up here. He has an announcement for us. Tom, please.
So maybe I do a little pratfall for you there. Okay. As these good people know, and some of you out there know, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the same as Sister Bukhari. We are more commonly called Mormons. We are a temple-building people. We have temples around the world, and in a few weeks we will have one in Indianapolis. There will be a time period starting the 17th of this month, running through the 7th of August, in which the general public could tour that. If anyone has any particular interest in this, they might call the number, and I will be sure they get the information that they would need to do this. It's on the north side of Indianapolis. Good chance, unless you're going to move soon, this might be your only chance to do it. Once they're built, they're closed to outside people. But there's no pressure to join the church or anything like that. Just an informative thing and a chance to look at a large, beautiful building. I appreciate this opportunity to say this, and I will return control to Mr. Wilkins.
Thank you very much, Tom. Can I ask a couple questions?
You can ask all the questions you want.
When you say you are a temple building organization, do you not have temples or churches here in Fort Wayne?
We have churches. Churches are different than temples. They serve a different purpose.
Can you tell me the difference?
Yes. Churches, physical building, are for weekly service, youth activities. Other things sometimes take place during the week. Basically, we meet on Sunday for sacrament service and other things like that. We also believe that temples are needed for people to get particular activities accounted for, things done that they will need to progress in the afterlife. So those are located at about 140 locations around the country. Currently, Chicago is our temple that we usually go to, although there's one in Louisville and one in Columbus, Ohio. But this will be the first one that's ever been in Indiana, and it will be in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So there are different purposes for it.
Okay, all right. And this has been a while in the making? Has it taken a while to get it going? Or?
It's been 3 years that they've been working on the physical structure.
Very interesting. Okay. Well, thank you, Tom, for that. That is very interesting. And if people are interested and would like to go, it might be your only chance to see the inside of a Mormon temple.
Absolutely.
Well, if you go to Salt Lake City, can't you go there and see that one?
No, you cannot. You can see the outside. They have a visitor center, and if they were to renovate it, to rebuild it, do something to it, they might have a time period in which it would be open.
But it's still
It's
a set time period that would be okay.
Right.
All right. Okay, well, on this last half, and this is going to be like last quarter of the program, we usually talk about Robert's Rules of Order. And of course, this is the Robert's Rule of Order that we talk about. But Henry Robert wrote this back in 1876. When you were talking about George Washington, you said something that made me remind me of something that's rather similar and interesting. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Henry Robert were all in their early years surveyors. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And if you're a surveyor, you have to have a certain intellect to be able to do it, because you're drawing a line and saying what is. You can't be wishy-washy and say, maybe it's over there, over here. No, that's not the way it goes. It's got to be clearly defined, and either it's right or it's wrong. And so with that mindset, Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. With that mindset, George Washington became our first president. And of course, Henry Robert wrote Robert's Rules of Order, using that logic and that rationale. Because when he wrote it, the first dictum that he had in the book was, when a group of people get together, the thing that we must do more than anything else is figure out what they want to do and then do it. That's it. That's all there is to it. Now, how you get from a whole bunch of ideas coming in at once, who's going to speak, how's that going to happen, that's where all the rules come in. If you've never been to one of our workshops, we can teach you in about an hour and a half the basics of parliamentary procedure, the stuff that you will need to run a basic business meeting. And then, if you're really interested, you can spend the rest of your life trying to digest this entire book. It's awesome. It's a strong, heavy book that you need to know. But it's broken down into sections, and we here in our club that meets here in the library once a month on the third Monday, we practice breaking it down into sections, into logical little groups, and then study those and try to remember them and memorize them so that when we're out in the world in a regular club sitting situation or any organization, then we can help with the rules. And that's what we are all about as parliamentarians. One of the most important things, and the first thing that we teach, is the fact that if you want your meetings to go really efficiently, have an agenda. For every meeting, we have something that looks like this, a couple pages long, both sides, and what that is a list of all the things we're going to do, and more importantly, when we're going to do them. By having that list, it keeps me on track all the way through the evening. And by making sure that every person here in the audience has a copy of it, then they know what page I'm on, where I'm at. They know the next event coming up. They know what to prepare for, if they're going to have to do something, if they're going to be able to sit back and relax a few minutes. The important thing is it's all written down. My wife, who also belongs to the Parliamentary Society, she likens it to a road map. If you were going to go on vacation, you wouldn't just get in the car and whiz on down the road. You'd mark down places of interest, where the hotels are. What she would mark down is where all the rest stops are. Because if you knew my wife, she has never met a rest stop she didn't like. She's peed all over Indiana. That's what she's done. No, seriously though. I mean, that's true. But that's how she would make out a map. She would list all these things, all of them that she's going to do one step at a time. And that would be her roadmap. This is the roadmap for our meeting. And every meeting that you have should have that same roadmap. You can put the stuff down in any order you want. Robert's Rules gives you a suggested list. Makes most sense. That's why it's there. But you don't have to, and you don't have to list all of the things that are on the one that is in the book. It's just that if you do, it would make most sense. Like, the first thing you ought to do is call things to order. And if you have some sort of opening ceremony, whether it's singing God Bless America or reciting the mission of the group, you then have to have introductions. Following that, an agenda. You adopt the agenda. Now, it's not cast in stone, but it's close. By that, I mean it takes a majority of the group to adopt an agenda. But it takes a 2/3 vote in the affirmative to change it. That's why it's important. Then you would follow with the secretary's report, your financial report, officers, committees, unfinished business, new business, announcements, some kind of a break perhaps, a program, and then adjournment. And that would take care of your meeting. That's why you got together. And generally speaking, if a group of people get together, they got together to decide something. And Robert's Rules helps you do that. And we would love to have you come to any one of our meetings and see what we do and maybe join us, or maybe have us come to your group and give you a free workshop on how to conduct the business of your organization. Now, we're not going to come out and bang you on the head with a gavel and say, you must do this, you must do that. No, no, no. We find out, first off, what your parliamentary authority is, and once we know that, then we say, if your parliamentary authority is Robert's Rules, then these are the things that you ought to do to have an effective meeting. And I would open up the floor for a discussion. We have a few more minutes left, I think about 4 or 5. And Tom, do you have anything to say about the parliamentary aspects, since you happen to be president of our local club? Unit.
Yeah, I'm a little depressed. I didn't realize that I couldn't use the gavel to beat people up with.
Oh, here you go.
No, we are Toastmasters here. Primarily, we use our parliamentary procedure for Toastmaster meetings, but it has application to all kinds of organizations. And all kinds of organizations need it, whether they understand that or not. I don't know what'll come of it. It's come to my attention that the housing addition I live in may have acted illegally in raising the association fees. It's not a blanket statement of truth. That's the rumor going around the association. Various church groups need it, small governments, just about anybody that meets together as a group. We've been working rather closely with a group of reenactors that are parliamentary unit. Just everybody needs it. They really do.
Yeah, and it needs to be fair and efficient when it's put together. Okay, let me turn to this side. Patricia, do you have any thoughts on it regarding your club? Maybe do you belong to a church group or a bowling league or anything of that sort where you would use it?
Until I was a Toastmaster, I really didn't think a whole lot of parliamentary procedure. I didn't think about it, I should say. And now that I've been in Toastmasters and I attend these TV shows on a monthly basis, I'm learning the importance of it and learning about it, mostly through osmosis and these wonderful leaders and examples that I would like to follow. And as a former president of one of the clubs, taking the club through the business meeting has a very organized feeling to it, and it's got a certain rhythm and a certain flow and specific things that you say and do in order to keep the order of the meeting going. And I've learned to come to respect parliamentary procedure and know that I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg as far as what I know about it.
Do you find that an agenda helps you?
Yes, an agenda is absolutely elementary to running a well-organized meeting. And I know many of you out there and all of us here have been to meetings where the leader of the meeting hasn't really had an agenda, hasn't had a point to the meeting, and the meeting dissolves into chaos from there. And a lot of time is wasted in meetings like that because there isn't an agenda to follow and there isn't a procedure to follow.
Okay, all right. We are down to the last few minutes of the meeting, and I always like to ask people to give any final thoughts or comments. And Tom, do you have any thoughts? Any final thing you'd like to say?
I have said this before. Several years ago, I attended a meeting that was before I was a parliamentarian. I had taken a little girl so she could put on a dance thing, so I wasn't part of the group, so to speak. They got bogged down in a never-ending circle that, for all I know, is still going on. It went on and on and on. Finally, somebody took pity on those of us that had no part in it and excused us. But they didn't understand parliamentary procedure, and there was no end to it. It just went on and on. with no resolution.
That's really pathetic when that happens. Are there any Toastmaster events coming up that you want to promote? Clubs you want to talk about, Patricia?
Well, I belong to the Red Cross Toastmasters Club and the Advanced Speakers and Leaders Club. Red Cross is an open club to the public. We meet every Tuesday at noon at the American Red Cross. You're welcome to join us. We have a lot of fun.
Okay, thank you. And Tom, do you want to talk about any of the clubs you belong to?
Well, Dave and I both belong to the Anthony Wayne Toastmasters, which, cover your ears, Patricia, has been president distinguished since 2006. We only, however, got 9 out of 10, whereas Patricia's club got 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
So both clubs are doing extremely well. I also belong to the Bob Lyman Club, which meets at the Pizza Hut twice a month on a Monday evening. Pizza Hut in Northcrest. And the advanced, for any of the people who have completed their CCs out there, please come to the Advanced Speakers and Leaders. It is a club that you need in addition to the one you belong to.
All right. And I also belong to the Bearfield Toastmasters, which meets on the south side of Fort Wayne at the Penguin Point. They are the finest club on the south side of Fort Wayne, and they meet every Tuesday night. In fact, they're meeting as we speak right now. And that's why I'm not there. I'm here instead. We have a picnic coming up for the parliamentary group, and that will be on Monday, the 20th of July, and it will be at Marlene Purdy's house. And if you're a member or if you're a friend of and would like to come, I'm sure we would welcome you with open arms. And that's about it for tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. This has been Dave Wilkins for the Speakers and Leaders Hour. And until next month, may your meetings be fair and productive as well as your meetings. Bye-bye now.